Mike, check one, two. It's the Y2K Collector. And do you remember what December 12th felt like 5 years ago? Especially when it comes to video game YouTube content and what the overall atmosphere was like. Just even if you don't want to pull the lens back and think about it at a global scale, but just even in your own community, even in your own neighborhood. 5 years ago, we were all on lockdown. We couldn't go outside. We couldn't do anything. And YouTube, for a lot of people, was your window to the world. It was your window of escape. And I think about those times, and I've been thinking about those times even more lately, just because of a lot of the changes that have taken place in my life over the last 5 years. And I think about the content that was being created, especially around like retro gaming, retro video game collecting, retro video game hunting. You know, you think about the earlier days of like the Phoenix Resale channels, the Chases, the Retro Ricks. Um, you think about a lot of those larger content creators, but then you also think about like the smaller channels, right? Um, the Y2K collectors, the Heckin' Steves, um, the Iowa Retro Gamer Dads, I'm just trying to think of all the smaller channels. I remember there was one channel I used to watch, Resale Wizard. You had that channel, Cody with a K, right? There were just so many like smaller channels, and the community felt like so much larger. And I think about how much change has taken place over the last 5 years, and I start to think about my life, and I think about the time lapse, and I'm like, okay, well, someone who was 25 in 2020, now they're 30 today, right? And 5 years may not sound like a lot of time, but your priorities as a 25-year-old drastically change when you become 30, right? Because once you hit your 30s, depending on where you're at in life, if you haven't, you know, established yourself in a career yet, or if you haven't, you know, found a good relationship, or if there's just something that hasn't, if you don't feel like you are or have been moving along in life at the right pace, your priorities have probably changed. And the same thing for somebody who, let's say when you started the channel, or rather 5 years ago, if you were 35 and now in 2025 you turned 40, your thought process and priorities have probably changed a lot. And depending on how you viewed, YouTube content creation and the hobby of retro game collecting, you may have even, you may have dived even deeper into it, or maybe you kind of pulled back a little bit and said, I'm going to focus on other things in life. And I've seen that happen in both directions. I've seen some content creators just pull back and say, I'm going to focus on other things. This YouTube stuff was fun, but I'm not going to go hard anymore. I need to focus on building other parts of my life. And I've seen other people really dive deeper into the YouTube and build their channels up. And some have even gone full time. They've just quit they quit their job, and now they're full time into YouTube. And no matter which, end of the fence you've fallen on, I think it's been super interesting to see all the changes that have occurred over the last 5 years or so. And we're just, we're less than 3 weeks away from entering 2026. And I think that there are going to be more sweeping changes for a lot of individuals next year in terms of how they approach the hobby of retro game collecting, in terms of what we see from retro game collecting content and retro video game content. And I think it's going to be just super interesting to continue to watch the hobby evolve, especially when you consider like some of the newer technology that's coming out, the newer like emulation systems, the different devices, things of that nature. I think it's just going to be really, really interesting to see how the overall hobby just continues to evolve and grow. And, me myself, personally, I'm grateful for the time that I've had in the hobby. I'm grateful for all the connections that I've made on the channel. It's really been an amazing ride, and the channel is going to continue into 2026. I think I told you guys at the start of this month that there's going to be a lot of experimentation on the channel, and I think you guys have seen that happen to a degree. Did a little bit of experimentation with some AI. Went back to kind of like a street style format for one of the videos. I've put out a couple of these just kind of phone aimed at box type videos. And I've really just been trying to just experiment, right? Just to see what the community resonates with. And, I'm going to continue to do that. The thing about experimentation, especially with a YouTube channel, is some people are going to like it, some people aren't. But what happens usually most is the YouTube algorithm hates it. If you make videos in a certain way and your channel has grown based off of certain videos being, filmed in a certain way or created in a certain way, and you grow your channel based off of that, sometimes it's really hard to deviate and do something else because the algorithm just won't push it as much. And because, believe it or not, this format is really what grew my channel. Like my channel really, it kind of grew to where it's at now through these types of like sit on the couch, kind of just ramble, conversation style videos. So sometimes changing it up, I could spend hours editing a video, putting in a ton of work, and the algorithm just won't like it because it's just not what the algorithm is used to from me. And so in 2026, I have a feeling that whichever path I choose, whatever type of content or whatever content style I choose, probably gonna have to spend some time retraining the algorithm to, I guess, continue to push those videos. But I'm gonna hold true to what I've always done. I'm never gonna ask you to subscribe. This is always gonna be a subscribe at your own risk channel. Because I may say something one day that pisses you off, and if I do, you have yourself to blame for being a subscriber, not me. And I'm going to continue to just create content in whatever format it's going to be. But I really appreciate all of you who have stuck with me through the journey, and for all of you who have been with me through this time. A lot of changes are happening, and I think the end of year recap, my end of year recap video is going to be, wow, it's going to be a story for sure. But yeah, a lot going on this week. We're about a week out or about 2 weeks out from Christmas. And once Christmas comes, I may go dark for a while, probably before dropping kind of like the end of year 2025 wrap up video. May go dark on the channel. We'll see. There's just a lot happening, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, let me know what your most memorable moments were from 2020 this time, December 2020. Let me know what channels were you watching, what content were you watching, what were you into. I'm interested to know. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.